Good morning, everyone. We are here on Forum Friday with Dr. Lin and Mark.
Hi,
Hi, Mark.
everybody. Hi. How are you, Dr. Lin?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. I guess now, as the politicians are saying, now that we have December 37th behind us, we can start the new year.
Well, hopefully next week's going to be
It
better
can
than the
only get
last
better.
week, you know?
It can only get better. It can only.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. What has been going on at the forums?
We have a flurry of activity. It seems everybody has recovered from their New Year's hangovers, and they've started to get on the boards again. We have a continuing conversation on gluten-free shelf life softness. So a member had issues with a dry or crumbly crumb in their gluten-free bread and looking for some help. And we've had another member, a newer member, Niam, piped in to suggest, as we have talked about sometimes before, sugars or honey to add humectancy to trap the moisture there so that it keeps it nice and soft without it going moldy. So that's one of the conversations. It's nice to see the members jumping in and supporting each other. That's the whole idea behind this, right? And
yeah,
really,
I've always pushed for peer mentorship. You know, when you practice peer mentorship, sometimes the person giving the advice is the one coming out with a better idea. You know, so I hope it spurs more ideas coming out from the discussion forums.
Yep.
Gluten-free is a huge issue. You know, everybody experiences the same things in terms of shelf life, softness.
Yep. Very much so. Yep.
All right. What is next?
Then we have an interesting question. Is the members looking for help on potassium sorbate, to use potassium sorbate as a preservative in their breads and buns per 1,000 grams of flour. Those types of preservatives.
On the potassium sorbate page, right?
That's what I would say. Let's go look at the potassium sorbate page on BAKERpedia, because that's in parts per million, depending on what you need. And those types of things are generally GMPs, good manufacturing practices. There's not necessarily limits, but if you use too much, it's going to affect your product.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you will know if you use too much. Nobody will want to eat the product.
No. Absolutely. Yeah. And and then the kind of the next one I find is really quite interesting. And this is someone who is scaling up from a home bakery and using the Tangzhong method for a very rich cinnamon bun. And this is a cinnamon bun that I'm not sure if they're talking about just the filling or the dough, but they're saying they're using full cream and milk and eggs and butter, right? And so that's a lot for the dough to carry. So they're asking for flour recommendations for this, as to keep the dough soft, but with enough texture to hold all the sticky goo inside, right? So the general rule with cinnamon buns and those types of pastries and baked goods is the richer the filling, the leaner the dough. You need to keep that balanced, because you start to put a really rich, heavy filling inside, then a rich dough will not have the strength to hold it, and it will collapse in on itself after baking, right? So, if you want to use a super rich filling, then go with a lean dough. In other words, as little sugar and fat in the dough side as possible. Here in North America, the Cinnabon franchise is extremely popular, as I'm sure we've all seen at the airports and things like that. And their dough is pretty much almost like a standard white bread. And if in some of the stores they you don't see it in the airport usually as often, but in some of the stores you can see them like in an open kitchen where they're rolling the dough and making it right in front of you, and you can see the person rolling the dough has some good arms, right? It's a pretty stiff dough because they have lots of goo.
and they don't sheet it by hand either. They have sheeters at the facility, right?
In some of them, yeah. And in the bigger stores,
I can't imagine rolling those things out.
I have seen some stores in where, like in shopping malls, where they've had people rolling it by hand, and it is a lot of work. It's really.
But my question here though is, why use the Tangzhong method? You know, why not just like a sponge and dough? That's it.
They're trying to do softness and shelf life. But I agree with you. I think sponge and dough.
Once you get into a cinnamon roll, it's not a problem anymore.
Because you're going to have enough. You're going to have enough the humectancy and everything from the filling, that you don't need that pre-gelatinized starch. And if you do a sponge and dough, or even a retarded dough, where you could do a short, even like a 40-minute sponge, mix the dough, retard it overnight, and then sheet it out. Then you've allowed all the slow fermentation and enzyme activity to give you a dough that's much more extensible, but has still a lot of that strength and structure, right? And that's part of the secret to some of the things like croissants and Danish pastries, to give them that nice crispiness, but to make them easy to laminate and stuff, is by getting that extensibility without having to add a lot of dough conditioners.
Correct. And just my 2 cents again, with sheeted or what do you call laminated doughs or sheeted doughs like that, people tend to forget that if you put in more bubbles, it will be softer, right? So in order for you to keep the bubbles in the system, in the pastry system, you have to have a well-developed dough, right? Being such a rich formula, it's hard to fully develop it. So
Absolutely.
My advice would be, what do you think of just keeping all the other things aside first, do like a 2-step method where you develop the dough partially and then put them in later for
exactly like in the traditional brioche type of
yes, correct. Right? So you need to get the developed dough to keep the network, to keep the gas in.
Yes, I'm going to presume that the cream is in the filling, and that's where I would put the cream. I would not put the cream in the dough. I would even go so far as to, I find, for a more commercial process, to use a skim milk powder is more effective than using milk, and gives you a better dough processing and dough condition. And eggs, that would be again similar to a brioche. Mix that dough, develop it really well, then add the butter in. You'll get much better processing that way.
That's correct. All right. Hope that helps. Are there any other questions that we want to cover?
There's one other conversation, again, like the gluten-free one. I want to mention is the members helping each other as well. Is another gentleman who makes the Mexican concha buns, the ones that look like seashells and that. They have like a sugar top coating, and because of COVID, they have to package everything, and they're finding that the coating gets sticky. And so I'm wondering if maybe they're packaging it too warm. But he said they're packaging it the next day, and then they're sticky. So I'm not sure. I'd have to confirm whether he's actually packaging it right away and selling it the next day, because it could be that the buns are too warm going into the package, and then the humidity is trapped and it goes into the concha. He believes it's migrating from the bun into the outer shell, which is a possibility. If that is truly the case, I would recommend egg washing or some type of a protein wash before applying the sugar coating, because that can create a barrier for to prevent the moisture migration. And it's worth trying anyway.
Or bake out more water. Unfortunately, that's going to dry up the bun, so you have to use enzymes. So
or bake slightly lower temperature.
Bake it out more. Thermoprofile it. Understand your thermoprofile. Bake it out maybe 10% more to reduce that water migration and condensation. Because if I'm not wrong, conchas does not have a filling.
No, it doesn't have a filling.
It's like a plain roll with a topping.
It's a plain, rich, sweet bun.
So that's pretty straightforward.
It's like 12% sugar, 12% fat around there, something like that. Similar to a hamburger bun.
Sugar, man.
And then there's sugar on top of it yet too, right? So,
put more sugar there.
They'll be bouncing off the walls.
Right. Someone needs to come up with this $1 million idea of spraying like pre-gel starch onto packaging to remove this issue. There, you have the $1 million idea. Go figure it out.
Yeah, something like that would be good. That would be an excellent idea.
Right. Well, Mark, thank you for coming on this week. It's so nice to see all the progress and all the peer mentoring that's going on. And congratulations on your first Baked in Science podcast. It's an excellent job.
Thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing more from you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the next one. I've got some irons in the fire and getting those put together and into production very soon. So it's been great working with the team. It's really the team. It's yourself and Joanna and Alon who make me sound good. Right. So
all right. Until next week, folks. See you at the forums.
Right. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.